Great. Well, I think we're going to get started. So, a warm welcome to everybody. Thank you so much for being here and for your interest about this project. The learning ecosystems is a really uh, important project that I've been working on for a while, along with a lot of my colleagues in this call. And we're here today to really take in the inspiring messages and stories from on the ground. So we are speaking with Anna Penido and with Runa Khan from Brazil and Bangladesh, respectively, to hear their stories of impact. But before we get into that, we also had another speaker who was going to join us today, Vutali Nawamando from South Africa. And as a fellow South African, I'm very sad to tell everyone that we sadly lost him 10 days ago in a car accident in South Africa.
Oh
So
my
I
God.
just wanted to take a brief moment of silence for us to honor Vutali and his legacy. And there is a lot that's still going to happen through AIM, and the partnership that we have with this project is not going anywhere. But yeah, we have had a big loss. So let's take a moment to remember Vutali, and then we'll continue with the session. Okay, thank you for taking that moment of silence with me to remember Vitaly, and let's now pick up the energy. We're going to first hear from Michael, who couldn't join us today. He's busy traveling and doing a lot of exciting things with the OECD. But he did have a short video message for everyone here, so let's start with that.
Hello, I'm really sorry I can't be with you in person today. Just wanted to say what an extraordinary amount of interest there is in local learning ecosystems at the moment. And I think that's maybe for two reasons. One is that the old model of national education systems um, is sort of reaching the end of the road. It's been around with us for a long time, but it may not have the traction it needs to make the changes we need. And that takes us to local learning ecosystems. I think the other uh, reason is that local learning ecosystems seem such a good vehicle for moving forward a broader set of purposes for education, what you might call education for human flourishing. Um, Global South Learning Ecosystems is back in business. We're in a transitional phase. We hope to move forward quite quickly into another substantive phase. But right now, we are interested in three things. What's the latest with local learning ecosystems? What are they doing? Um, Two, how can we learn about scaling up and supporting local learning ecosystems? And three, how should we evaluate local learning ecosystems? What are the ways, therefore, that we can persuade others to take the same path? So today, I think your session, you're going to be hearing from the authentic voices of local learning ecosystem leaders, Latin America, Africa, but also India, Indonesia, and Bangladesh. Those are the people who will really move this work forward. And I leave you in theirs and in Vishal's capable hands. Goodbye for now.
So thank you, Michael, in absentia, for that message. And I also just wanted to take a brief moment as the project manager for this project to take you through what we see as the summary of where we are right now as a project. And then I will hand over to Vishal and we'll have a lovely discussion with Anna and Runa. So this is a 1-year transition phase. And before we get into the details, I think just a reminder for everyone here. I know a lot of people are already aware of this, but just a reminder to everyone about what a learning ecosystem actually is. It's an interdependent community that's based on the biological ecosystem concept. So it really has these key features that fit into this learning ecosystem concept that are shared by the biological origins of this term. So the diversity, the productivity that's maximized, cycling resources, being dynamic and adaptable to surroundings, and being scalable. These are crucial facets of any learning ecosystem. And importantly, they also need to work within their own contexts. So there's lived experiences there, social cultural norms, and integrating social emotional learning pedagogies. So that's also specific to different local contexts, which is why we have such an emphasis on the specific regions, being Africa, Asia, and Latin America for this project, and also the local leadership and local solutions to local challenges. And crucially, the learning ecosystem approach needs to shift this goal of education from academic achievement towards helping children thrive, which may address many adversities that they face, and not just in the classroom. And a lot of these are barriers to learning. So just a quick sum up, what we did in phase 1 was really understanding the depth and breadth of learning ecosystems through a mapping exercise. So that's how we found these 11 core learning ecosystems spread across Africa, Asia, and Latin America. And we produced a report with short case studies on all of them. Of course, this doesn't capture the richness that was really shared with us in this research process, but that's hopefully what we're going to unlock in our next phase, with our hypothesis that regional hubs could help to scale up the incredible potential of these local learning ecosystems through each region and potentially globally. So our longer term vision through this transition phase is to strengthen and broaden the community that we have already established. So these learning ecosystem leaders and Anna, Runa, and others who are joining us today have been involved with this project for a few years now, and they're really familiar with us. And we're also going to build on that and invite new people to join this network. And by building that network, we're also building our knowledge and our capacity in these regions and as a collective. And hopefully in phase 2, which will start in 2026, we'll be able to consolidate those regional experiences at scale. And so there's all these different ways that we can see these hubs engaging in research and codification of how to best function as a learning ecosystem, the curation and creation of toolkits and other products, and storytelling content, building networks, building capacity, and also really sharing a global dialogue and opening that up more widely beyond the circle of like-minded people. And that also feeds into this advocacy and compelling storytelling around how to better learn together, how to change the future of education together. So I'm going to stop there. Thank you so much for listening to me and for listening to Michael's message. And I'm going to hand over to Vishal, who also initially joined from his context in India as a learning ecosystem leader in his own right. And he's going to take us through the rest of the session.
Thank you, Catherine. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us from all different parts of the world. As we move on with this session, I invite each of you to just introduce yourselves in the chat, maybe your name, where you're joining us from today, the organization, and one thing that brings immense joy to you. So we can get to know you a little bit better than just the labels that we have. I would also like to express my deepest condolences to Bhutali's family and colleagues at AIME, and hope that they find strength in this difficult time. The session is called Stories of Impact, Learning Ecosystems in Action. And for us in the first phase of the study, at the core of the question around learning ecosystems was the young person, and how there is an entire ecosystem that can work and should be working to help a young person thrive. So I wanted to start off by grounding ourselves with the story of a young person in India that we worked with at Dream a Dream. So this is a young man that we met when he was about 11 years old. He lived in a relatively poor slum community on the outskirts of Bangalore. Uh, he was going to a public school, and then he was asked to drop out of the public school by his dad so that he could start going to work with his dad to a nearby mine to cut stones. He didn't want to do that. He wanted to continue education. He managed to fight his way through that and join a residential school where he got access to education. So that was the first ecosystem that came into his life. We started working with this residential school and introduced this young man to a variety of life skills and social emotional learning programs using play and sport. He started playing field hockey, absolutely loved playing hockey, became very good at it. The second ecosystem was Dream a Dream itself. And the third ecosystem through hockey was the coaches and the hockey academy that he got access to. He also got access to other experiential mediums of learning like outdoor camps, hiking, trekking, art-based workshops and programs through artists. So there was this massive ecosystem of support, of mentorship, of role modeling that started building for him. But his situation within his family continued to be very complex. So there was always this struggle of, do I kind of listen to my family? Do I make those choices, or do I kind of follow my intuition, follow my heart, and go where these ecosystems are taking me? He did follow his heart, managed to complete education, go to college, complete his college, joined us as a facilitator, as a life skills facilitator, as a young graduate, started working with other kids in his community, got deeply interested in photography and filmmaking, found mentors who could then continue to help him pursue his passion. So today he's a communications specialist where he does videos, he does photography, he teaches photography, but he also does photography, not just as a passion, but now as a career, and makes videos and films as a career. So this is an example of how for every young person, just access to a school many a times is not going to help them thrive. And if you want to really help every young person build this expansive understanding of thriving, we need a learning ecosystem in place. But here we're going to talk at learning ecosystems at a very systemic level, at a macro level. So I have two absolutely inspiring people joining us now, and hopefully a third person who will join us later in the conversation. So we've got Runa Khan and Anna Penido. Runa Khan from Bangladesh and Anna Penido from Brazil. It's also exciting that they're all part of the Ashoka Fellowship, so am I, and it's always great to talk to fellows who come from the Ashoka community. We're going to start off with Runa. So I'm going to do a quick introduction, Runa, and then we'll go to Anna.
Hello, good
Sorry,
evening.
Runa. So let me do a quick introduction for you.
Okay.
So we let people know who you are, and then you could go in with your opening comments. So Runa Khan is the founder of Friendship, an international social purpose organization established in 2002. Friendship works for the most vulnerable and remote communities in Bangladesh for saving lives, poverty alleviation, climate adaptation, and empowerment, bringing direct services to 7.5 million lives a year. She's won a host of awards, including the European Women's International Leadership Award, the Green Award, the Social Entrepreneur Award by ISTB, the Rolex Award for Enterprise, the Ashoka Fellowship, of course, and the Schwab Foundation Social Entrepreneur Award. She's also a member of very dignified groups such as the Club of Rome. She's a board member of Global Dignity, an advisor to the British Asian Trust in Bangladesh, and a host of amazing other achievements that Runa's had. So it's an absolute honor and pleasure to have you with us, Runa. I'm going to hand it over to you to help us introduce a bit of your work and the learning ecosystem.
Thank you very much. So you've introduced my work very well. Those are the 4 promises on which we built the organization. And the one thing that I would like to add is, in an area where we started working, it was impacted by climate, and I never understood it. So we were actually dealing with IDPs, internally displaced people, and we couldn't, and I really couldn't understand why in a country of hundreds and thousands of dollars coming in and everything coming in aid and thousands of NGOs, why this was not being addressed. It is because of the difficulty and remoteness, inaccessibility of the area. And I think that is the learning, if you can make something sustainable in the most difficult environment, somehow carrying that into simpler environments of a normal village is much easier. And every time I would take a step, it was always keeping in mind to make things very, very simple, to understand what were the essence of being, which were needed so that synergetic effect can, with the drops of learning that we can give in this environment, there would be a synergetic effect. Now, very often people come in and they want to innovate. Now, innovation for me is a very old-fashioned term. It's something which we should, really, it's innovation for the sake of innovation really means nothing. And we need to understand that for the needs of the people, innovation is a tool which you have to keep addressing all the time, daily, because you need to ensure that you have reached the needs. And this is where we started with our education system. So, we work in many diverse things, but taking the education was itself a big challenge, because these were areas where in a little island, for example, which could be about 5 kilometer, not one person could read and write. And one person has studied up to grade 5. How do you make a learning out of that? How do you train that person to become a teacher and then to ensure that she can teach these mainstream education from zero to pre-primary to the high school? And this is what we did, actually. We had to incorporate such totally different modalities of having schools which can be, every time the island moves, the schools shifted. No teachers. So we just take people on character. And character building for me, sometimes, very often, we say that the past education system we have to forget and we have to start on a totally new system. There are things about the past education system which are not being incorporated today in the mainstream education of most of the countries, which is things like civic education, ethical education, value-based education. These are somehow become old-fashioned and they're not integrating it. But these build character. And the story you said, Vishal, is a story of a human character. And if you cannot build character along with building their academics, you lose out on something. So we always try to ensure that teachers who had hardly passed their grade 8, teaching mainstream education to the children. We have about 560 schools now. And with these schools, some of them, about 500 of them are in the Rohingya camps, and about 60 of them are out of the remote climate areas. And all the teachers are community people whom we have trained to become teachers. That didn't work in high school. So we put in a total different modality of online learning. And today, you will not believe that we have, our results are, first of all, amazing. Last year, for example, we had 1B and all A minus, A pluses in the high school examination, which is topping any other schools in Bangladesh with a result like this. And this has been the same. We have only had one child who had failed in the last 18 years that we have had our schooling. And these children today, they are going to international universities. Of course, we have a kind of a center, where they can come and do some learnings and they can understand, and they find the career guidance cell, which can guide them. But they are going to medical colleges, they're going to nursing schools, they're in the army, they're in the police, they are going to government universities, which are the public universities. international universities representing COP, themselves in COP, representing themselves at Strasbourg, at the UN parliaments. Now, how did this happen? It is, I think, the incorporation of taking the ecosystem of the environment, understanding it to a level where each item that is needed for education of them becoming a human being, good citizen, and good in academics being put together, ensuring that it all works in synergy together, and thereby creating a kind of a snowball which we could just kind of put up, and changes happened. They are today the leaders, climate leaders. Just today we launched our fourth program for them, our connectivity school program, where they're speaking in English to students in Europe, from France, from Belgium, from Switzerland and Luxembourg, and their friends. And we kind of didn't accept that tomorrow the education system needs to be followed. We need to jump with these children to day after tomorrow's education. And that is what we did. And yes, it's been, I think the simplicity of it all. Today, now we are working with the government, trying to take parts of our programs, and I hope it'll work, because so many areas people cannot get teachers, but there are systems which can work, provided we are humble enough to understand that not everybody needs to pass their bachelor's to teach a child of 4 or 5, a grade 4 or 5. And finding IT systems, which are also tools which are available, which we need to use intelligently. So this is the friendship story of these teachers and children, which has created a kind of a new wave and carrying, education to those whose parents, grandparents were left totally untouched, and they themselves were left untouched. And we are very, very proud of our students and our teachers.
Thank you, Runa. Thank you.
Историю. На самом деле я об этом рассказывала этим самым.
Sorry, could we just request them themselves? Yeah. Thank you, Runa, for this introduction to the learning ecosystem. We will come back to you with more questions to unpack key elements and characteristics of the learning ecosystem. And for people who've joined us, if you've got questions and reflections for any of our speakers, please put them on chat, and we'll try to get to them, to all of the questions that you put to us. Let me go to Ana Penido, and I'm going to quickly introduce you and then hand it over to you. Ana Penido is based out of Brazil, is currently the Executive Director for the Centro Lemann for Leadership and Equity in Education. He has a bachelor's in journalism and a specialization in social management for development from the Federal University of Bahia. She's participated in an advanced leadership initiative at Harvard University, the Human Rights Training Program at Columbia University, and the thematic residency on youth as agents of transformative change at the Rockefeller Foundation, Bellagio. As the director of the Inspirar Institute, Ana contributed to the creation of the Brazilian curriculum standards and high school reform. She was the chief of the UNICEF field office for the states of Sao Paulo and Minas Gerais, and founded and directed CIPO, Comunicao Interactiva, a non-governmental organization dedicated to guaranteeing the rights of children, adolescents, and young people through the educational use of communication means and technologies. Ana has been an Ashoka Fellow since 2002. Welcome, Ana, and thank you for joining us today. Over to you.
Thank you, Vishal, and thank you, everyone, for being here and sharing this, sharing ideas on how to build learning ecosystems with us this morning here in Brazil, maybe afternoon, night for some of you. So I've been working with education. It's been 35 years now. And now I'm in this position of leading Centro Lemann, this global organization, non-governmental, non-profit, non-partisan organization based in Brazil. I'm our mission at the center is to improve basic education with equity. Equity is a very important component of what we do by strengthening leaders' commitment and capacity. So as an activist, I started working with children's rights right after the end of the military coup here in Brazil, when democracy was back, and civil society started to create organizations to not only fight for people's rights and to also try to change our national how to call it?
Constitution.
Constitution. Thank you. Thank you, Vishal. So our national constitution to ensure more power to people, more rights to the vulnerable ones, especially for children, the rights to education, to health, and to participation. But at that time, we were always doing things to replace somehow the government. What the government was not doing, we would do as civil society organizations at that time. Then some years later, we found out that we would never have the scale to really change things in this huge country, Brazil. So we had to really support the government to do things in a better way, in a more effective way, in a more consistent way. So we started collaborating with departments of education throughout the country. But then we realized that it was our role as civil society to really try to help more in-depth changes to happen and try to empower and build capacity within the government so they could do things in a more autonomous, responsible, effective way. So what we do at the center now is that we really try to empower leaders for them to do the thing, governmental leaders, for them to do the changes in their ecosystem. So it's creating a learning ecosystem of leaders so they can also create learning ecosystems in each one of their territories and departments of education and school networks. So we've been training from the mayors to the school leaders. So all of those who can make decisions to really change things in their communities. The idea is to work with their personal development. So start with their mindsets, with their beliefs, trying to really make them have very high expectations towards each one of their students. Try to make them rethink their attitudes, their behaviors as leaders to be more inspirational, more democratic, more effective. The second component, we also try to develop what we call the 4 C's for leaders, first being the commitment. So if leaders, from the mayors to the schools, the school leaders, if they don't really commit to changing things, to transforming lives, to transforming their ecosystems, it's very hard. And sometimes we started working with the school leaders, but we realized that if they didn't have the support of the systems leaders, they wouldn't be able to really make real change. And when we started working also with the systems leaders, we realized that without the political leaders, the system leaders and the school leaders will also have much more difficulty to change things in a deeper way, in a more consistent and robust way. So we started by really raising the level of commitment of each one of those leaders to really prioritize education. The second C is the consistency. So we are trying to become like knowledge brokers to really help those leaders to understand what's going on in their systems by analyzing very relevant data to understand what's really working, what's not working, to understand the levels of inequalities that happen in their systems, who is not learning, why they are not learning, and of course, to improve the access to all sorts of good practices, standards, parameters that can really guide their decisions, their actions. Third C is the capacity. Of course, we have to develop their capacity to make change. Sometimes, for instance, school leaders are good teachers. They are appointed as leaders, but they don't have like management capacity, or they don't. They have never been to a leadership training program. So same thing happens to those who are in the system, and even the mayor. Sometimes the mayor doesn't really know what their role is in education, what type of legacy improving education can bring to him as a politician, as a public figure, as a human being. So we try to improve their capacity in different areas. And the fourth C is the cohesion. All those leaders, they have to work together. They have to have common goals. They have to trust in each other. So we try to really make all those leaders strengthen their bonds and work in a very collaborative way, a very synergetical way towards the goals that they have to achieve. But the last thing and most important, I think, is that we are really trying to transfer all the technology, social technology, methodologies, knowledge that we have, so that those leaders can use those tools, those references, those skills to lead their own communities of knowledge, their own communities of practices. So they lead the transformation. So we don't want to do for them, but we want to really empower them, not only to have the capacity, but the intrinsic motivation, the real commitment to do what they have to do. So I'll stop here, Vishal, and let's try and talk more.
Lovely. Thank you. Thank you, Anna. It is fascinating that we're today listening to two learning ecosystems, one in Brazil, one in Bangladesh. With the study that we did in the first phase, we had looked at about 100 potential learning ecosystems in the global south and 11 that were profiled in the report finally, and many of them are here today with us. And of course, this was also possible with committed support from Porticus, which was a funding partner for the first phase and continues to be a funding partner for the transition phase of this. Now, what I found fascinating, Runa and Anna, from your initial presentations, Runa, your work in building a learning ecosystem for your students focused on teachers. And teachers directly work with children and young people in building their own capacity to be available and accessible to the young people who are in very difficult circumstances. And Anna, your approach was one step removed, or possibly a couple of steps removed. You said beyond the teachers, there are the school leaders, there is the administrative leadership, there is the political leadership, there's the bureaucratic leadership, which need to shift their mindsets and beliefs around their role in the education transformation journey, and how are they showing up in the way they're taking decisions for the children. So two very fundamental differences, but all working towards impacting the child who's growing up in adversity. What I would love to learn, maybe I'll start with you, Anna, this time, is maybe if you could share why you chose this approach, and maybe an example of a success story that you have had from this learning ecosystem approach. And I'll go to Runa with the same question then.
So as I told you before, I've been working in this field for 35 years, and I've done a little bit of everything. I was a facilitator for youth workshops, media workshops. I've designed policies. I've trained trainers and teachers and principals, but it's very hard to see changes happening on the ground. It's very hard to accelerate changes. And I was always looking for the reason why we had so many data, policies, evidences, and why things were not changing. And I finally realized that there is this piece missing. If the leaders who are responsible for implementing well all those information, those policies, those practices, they are not committed and competent, it's very hard. Things are not going to happen. So if we study the science of implementation, of course, there are many elements that have to be considered, such as communities' involvement, engagement, monitoring, capacity development. But without the leaders, those who are really coordinating, orchestrating, making things happen, if they are not really fulfilling their role in a very, very robust way, things will never change. So after a while, and I was a little frustrated because, my time is running out. So I wanted to see changes happening in a more, significant, meaningful way. So leaders were the answer for that. And I'll just tell you this story. It's just one story because we've been working in many municipalities around Brazil, many states. But we worked in this tiny town in the state of Maceió, Alagoas, in the northeast of Brazil. Very poor town called Branquinha. So we started by working at sensitizing the mayors, and the mayor of Branquinha came to one of our meetings. And it's very interesting to listen to his wife when she says it was the first time that he spent 5 hours without smoking because he didn't want to leave the room. So the mayor was there, very impressed, because for the first time we showed him data on what was going on in education in his municipality, but showing all the inequalities between Black students and white students, between the poor ones and the richer ones, between those living in rural areas or in the urban center. So he was shocked. This was new for him. But we also tried to make him understand that by supporting, prioritizing education, he would really boost his career because he would be delivering what the population would need the most in order to thrive. So it's not only about the children, but the whole community. That if the community has access to good education, everything develops in a much more fruitful way, right? So the mayor got really committed and went back with his secretary of education. This guy, we managed to really make him not only be the most enthusiastic ambassador for education in his municipality, but he started to study to really understand what he had to do. It was not only about having good intentions, but knowing what he had to do. So he found out that most of the kids in his municipalities were illiterate. Even on like 4th grade, 5th grade, 7th grade, So how could they learn math or science or biology, chemistry, if they couldn't read? They couldn't write. So he actually built this, this foundational learning center. So those kids who were illiterate in different levels and grades in different schools within the municipalities were invited to spend some months in this center, being, really taught on how to read and write with the best teachers in the municipalities, those who could really ensure that in a couple of months they could be reading well. So after that, he also decided, him with his team, right? And the whole school network. So they decided that every student on their first and second grade would attend this special center to ensure that they will learn how to read and write well. And then go back to their regular schools. This changed the whole thing, the whole game, right? It was a game changer. And after that, of course, many other things happened. So they now have, they are part of this very interesting network of creative schools. So after dealing with the basics, they started to try and innovate. So to help their teachers to learn how to create different approaches to education, to create different sources and resources to engage their students in a more interactive, interesting way. And they've been doing great in terms of the results that they are achieving. So it's about them. So now the whole system had learned together, is still learning together. And the mayor was re-elected. The secretary will stay there for 4 more years. And after those 8 years, I'm sure that nobody would be able to take away what those guys had built, because they built with their own hands and minds and hearts. So it's theirs. They have the ownership, and it's changing, and it's theirs. And they are now a reference to many other municipalities in the surroundings and in the Northeast region of Brazil. So that's my story for now.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you, Anna. It's just amazing that how by shifting the mindset of a mayor, the kind of ripple effect that has created in the entire region and community, and how that's also helped you build a model to take this and scale it across Brazil. So thank you for sharing the success story. Very powerful indeed. Over to you, Runa. Yes.
Yeah. So thanks. Yeah.
So yeah, so success stories from your learning ecosystem.
Yeah. I want to first just say that, I need to step back a little bit, because education is one of our pillars. Okay. But our biggest pillar is health, by the way. And we have like 7 hospital ships. We've got hospitals. We are the largest in the Rohingya camps for health. The reason why I said that is, when you start, when I first went into these areas, I'm not by the way, I'm not an NGO person. So I was totally not knowing how to even make an NGO or what is an NGO. So I just saw people who needed certain input so that they can become part of the mainstream. I could not believe that we were standing in the same country, and those were children who could have been my kids, and I could have been there. I think this is what triggered the way I thought and the way I worked. So health for me was primary, because, we talk about education. How many children don't go to school because they've got a cleft lip? How many children don't go to school because of these areas, because of burns, because of ear infections, and they can't hear? We found hundreds of cases like this. We were doing operations. We were having, doctors coming from all over the world, operating on our ships for children and adults, of course. But this created a kind of a bond with the community. And I think one needs to deeply respect and work and listen to the community. I keep saying that you have to listen to the community, to what they say and also what they don't say, because all the hidden pains and requirements are in what they don't say to you, but you have to understand it. And we started off with health, and then there was climate. This was the most vulnerable area. So there was all these climate impacts happening, land breaking, houses washed off, etc., etc. We were in climate. Then in 2006, within 4 years, we started also. Every time I would go to a villager and ask, what do you want? You know what they would say? This is where I kept thinking, why are people even trying to get NGOs saying that you need awareness, to create awareness for education? You don't, because every time I would go to a father or a mother, I would ask, what do you need now? They would say, our lives are finished. We would like our children to be educated. Problem was that they also needed the children to work with them in the fields, because they need a second hand. They can't afford that second or third hand. So we needed to also set the way that we've done the system is 2.5 hours of education only for primary school. Results were the same, because we used to have, now it's just cut off 2 years ago, but we used to also have a national examination at the primary level. Okay, so even then the children were coming out like that. So, we then, of course, this result goes to the government. This is also happening where we are now, we are having a full team of government officials coming over to see how is it that our children are coming out like this from the chores. Along with that, so we have now there are about 48, I think, 1,000 children, I think, who are in school. And each child is being able to be managed, a group of 30, to be managed with one teacher. All right, we don't make large classrooms because the teacher herself needs to be trained. So what we do is every month, the teacher first has the woman or the man is first having one training, and then every month, 2 days, the school over the weekend, the teacher comes, we train the teachers for the lesson of the month. And then they do the lesson of the month and they go back and they are teaching the same thing over and over and over again. So we have teachers with us who are like 20 years old. Once I'll tell you, and why ethics is so important. In these areas, even 500 taka is like a salary, is like 3 days earning for the father. And this one child found a 500 taka note in the field, brought it back to the teacher. The teacher was amazed. Child says, but this is the month of honesty. We are taught honesty. How could I not do this? Little things like this. Once our teacher was crossing and it was raining and there was a bit of, like in the water. And there was a small little boat and they wanted to cross. There was this old couple, who wanted to cross. And a lot of children were playing. And this old man kept asking, please bring the boat to me. Please bring the boat to me. And the children kept playing. And our teacher was passing. And the old man and woman got so upset. They said, we know you're not from the friendship school. If you were, before we would have asked you to bring the boat, you would have brought the boat to us. This creates so much strength. The children are taking care of the school. The children are growing the flowers. They are in charge of cleaning the toilets, cleaning the bathrooms, ensuring that all the, they have to come in and they have a mirror and they have a comb and they come in because we want them to feel dignified. We don't have a uniform because all parents cannot afford the uniforms and we cannot afford it. And the parents can't afford it. So we just ask them to be clean. And they come and they kind of comb their hair and they look decent and they go into the class. If you cannot imbue dignity, if you cannot imbue values, it is very, very difficult to ensure that you can just put in one drop, which is the education. So education needs to be holistic and life needs to be holistic. So, besides health, we have climate actions, we have the education system. We also have something which is, of course, we have agriculture and all that, which is food security. We have like solar villages, ensuring that the children can read also, and not many, 3 or 4 of them, but it's not many, but it's still, it's a symbol for them. Then we have something which is inclusive citizenship. What do we teach here? Here we teach them rights. It's the communities are taught rights. If a police comes to you and wants your cow, are you going to give it to him? And children are taught child rights. So in the schools, child right has become part of our education system. The child knows the father or the teacher cannot hit the child. The child knows what is the right of a child, how they can demand this even from the government, the right of education. So, we make the whole community very, very strong in awareness. Once, we took the chairman of, I think, 10 districts or something like that, or unions, and we had this meeting with the minister. The minister comes for lunch, and the minister was supposed to just stay for lunch. Here's meet them and go. He stayed till 10:30 at night. Why? You know why? Because he was calling up the chairmen were directly telling him that particular bridge is not working. Our children can't go to school. Can you help us? And he would ring up the local government and say, oh, but the money is there. Why are you not making that bridge? So, we need to work in a very holistic way so that the communities, the government level, and we usually work with the lower government, the Union Porishad, Upazila, all this level, the district level and below. We work with them, having national presentations a few times a year. But mainly our daily work is with the local government. So it is a kind of involving the government, putting them on board, and everybody actually, whatever we say about bad governments at the local level, the people all want to be on a winning team. If you are successful, there is a way in which you attract good people towards your work. The national curriculum books come in, and we are the first organization that they call up to give us free books. And sometimes I shouldn't talk about this in public at all. But sometimes we get it even before the government school gets it, because they really want our children to get everything that they can. So it's a question of onboarding everybody. It's a question of looking not only into a child's education, but seeing that the child can lead a dignified life. That child goes and tells the parents, we need to, you have to, how do I do this? Or that, you need to learn ABCD. We have got 48 adult learning centers now, just because of the demand, because the parents wants to learn so they can help the child, and then so we have this, it's a functional literacy course. It's only 8 months, but they know how to read, write, and do mathematics. That's it, nothing more. No English, nothing. And so it's a kind of, we try to not come in with an idea. We try to identify the needs so that every idea or every ability that we have got and we put it in can be synergized. It's like so often, projects like if you take a ball and the ball has got spikes, okay? And the ball has spikes. Now, when you come in with an idea, it's quite often that they have a big hole here, but they have got already something here. And we come and build on this because it's easier to build with projects on something which is existing, people who are available. But then what happens? You can't roll it anymore because this gets deeper, this gets deeper, this gets deeper. And when you try to roll the ball, it doesn't work. It gets worse. So you need to identify the gap. People don't even see those gaps. Projects don't even want to come in with those gaps because they think it can't work. But unless we fill the gap, we cannot take the community on the ride with you. And then my work.
Thank you, Runa. I know I can continue to hear you. So I'm going to invite you to bring you to finish. I do have more questions. Yes, just finish your point.
Okay.
Sorry.
No, let me finish my point. It is that, you cannot come in with a prefixed idea of what you're going to do. Every system needs tweaking. There is no panacea for even spreading what you are doing. It always needs to be tweaked, always needs to fit into the circumstances.
Thank you, Runa. I think in both Runa and Anna in their sharing also outlined many principles of a learning ecosystem around listening to the communities, listening to their needs, around designing around the local context, understanding the local challenges and the adversities faced by the communities, understanding the leverage points, understanding where the micro improvements can happen, which can lead to the ripple effects of change. Uh, so very beautifully, and again, I think in both the sharing, what I think is important for us to also recognize that these are complex systems with multiple complex challenges, and I'm able to relate to the examples from Brazil and Bangladesh because we face very similar complexities in India in our work. So it's also very difficult to unpack these complex challenges and to be able to share all the multifaceted aspects of the work and to be able to present it in a refined, processed manner because it requires that level of unpacking. So I do appreciate the level of sharing both Anna and Runa you're doing to help us understand local learning ecosystems and what makes them work and why it's important for us as we look at education transformation to look at the learning ecosystem approach as a core strategy. I know there's some questions that have come from the participants here, so I'm going to pick the first question, which I think is for you, Anna. Is from Karanbir Singh. Question is, learning ecosystems depend on collaboration. How have successful learning ecosystems made community members move away from the leader-follower attitude to the co-creator attitude? Also, before you answer that, sorry, I would just want to make a point that we did have a third speaker joining us, third panelist, Gabby Arenas from Catalyst Now. Unfortunately, she's on a flight which has been delayed. So she's not able to join us right away. She did say if the flight kind of lands on time, she will try to join us, but doesn't look like, which also means that we get just more nuggets of wisdom and insights from Anna and Runa. So we'll continue with that, but just for everyone's information that Gabby might not be able to join us. If she does join us in the last few minutes, we will invite her to share her reflections. But Anna, yes, please, a response to the question.
Vishal, I think the key aspect of collaboration is how you also train and inspire and guide leaders so they can make room for collaboration, for participation. So the type of training that we offer to those political and bureaucratic and school leaders is one that really make them understand that they won't do it by themselves, that they have to, as Runa was saying, consider the demands, the needs, the interests, the wishes of the community as well. So they have to learn how to listen to their students, to their teachers, to those working within their ecosystem. So the families, the parents as well. So the idea is to really make those leaders act like facilitators, inspirational facilitators. So the one component that is very, I would say, is crucial and is very well received by the leaders in our processes is what we call active listening. Because it's not only about allowing people to speak up, it's to really pay attention on what they are saying. And of course, considering what they are saying in the design of policies and practices, procedures within the system. So that's what we've been trying to do. And of course, there's also this whole idea, this sensitivity to equity, which is how to listen without prejudice, how to listen without being judgmental. Because sometimes it's like oh, I'm not going to listen to this parent who's, almost illiterate, or it's a rural worker. What does he or she has to say in terms of education? Education is for experts. Education is for those who go to a university to be trained as a teacher. So how to really make those lenses be in a way transformed by this capacity to see what we usually don't see, to listen to what we usually don't really hear. So those lenses, they are not trivial to help the people develop. So there's one exercise that we propose to all of the leaders, for the school leaders, for the bureaucratic leaders, for the mayor, to go to a school during free time and do the neck test. So the neck is to just turn your neck towards the patio and try to see where the Black students are, the shy students, where they are, the disabled students, where they are, what they are doing, how they have been looked by the others, how do they feel, how can we perceive or understand their feelings, or if they are comfortable or uncomfortable in being in the school. So this changes the whole thing, when you really see what's going on with each one of your students. And then trying to learn from their family background. Where do they live? What type of life? So there's this very interesting story about this teacher that was really pleased with the student that would come to classroom with his notebook, very dirty, like with mud and coffee, and the student would sleep, take some naps during classes. So he decided to visit the student's home. And when he gets there, the mother was in front of the door welcoming him and saying, "You are the math teacher. Oh, my son speaks about you. He loves your classes. We don't have like the floor was like sand or mud.
Yeah.
Mud. So, and he didn't have a proper bed as well. So the mattress would be on this mud floor. And she told the teacher. So every night he lays down on his mattress and he puts a candle and a cup of coffee and starts studying with his notebook until very late at night to try to catch up with your class. So because of this piece of information, the whole relationship of this teacher with the student changed completely. And now this teacher understands what this student wants, needs, who this person is. How can you teach someone that you don't know? How can you build trust and, with someone that you know nothing about? So that's what we try to do with the leaders, for them to really have this type of approach to each one of the members of their learning ecosystems, to really allow this process to be collaborative, collective.
Yeah. Wow. Thank you, Anna. I had goosebumps listening to that story. I have so many similar stories from our work at Dream about teachers transforming because of what you said, this authentic listening, creating spaces for this authentic relational listening and investing in the relationships. And I think that's also what a learning ecosystems approach kind of talks into, that helping a young person build the capabilities to thrive is relational work. there are multiple relationships that a young person comes across in their growing up years. It could be the teacher, the parents, the community members, could be a leader. Unless we have a deeper understanding of their context, of their relationships, of their backgrounds, we will not be able to make mindful, authentic decisions for them and for their education. So thank you, Anna. Very, very beautifully shared about how we're moving into more a co-creative process. That's what a learning ecosystem enables. There are a few more questions, but actually we have about a few minutes left. I wanted to open it up to the audience and see if anyone wanted to unmute and ask a question to either Anna or Runa. Just get in a few more voices from the group. So anyone questions related to the learning ecosystems approach, what you have heard so far? We'll give a few moments for someone if they want to unmute and talk. Yes, Terry, I can see your hand. Yes, please unmute yourself. And
yeah, these talks have been absolutely wonderful and inspiring. In all my work as a high school principal and as a teacher, I tried to open up space in the curriculum for self-directed learning, where students could bring their own concerns, questions, interests, talents, passions into the curriculum and allocate resources, teacher time, but not just teacher time, because many of the things that the kids were interested in, that they were passionate about, we didn't have a qualified teacher on the staff. So it would be then open to parents and members of the community to come and act as mentors and teachers, in fact, for the interests of some of the young people. And I've been arguing strongly, as we've got a curriculum review right now in England, that we should listen to the interests and questions of the kids and create space and time for those to be actually developed and fulfilled in school. Inevitably, in my experience, when you do this, it draws in the whole community and it becomes an ecosystem. But we can make a start in schools instead of putting more and more and more stuff, much of which is irrelevant and out of date by yesterday afternoon. We should create space in the curriculum for the kids' interests. I wonder what your response to that would be.
great, Terry. I think if it's okay, Anna and Runa, we will take a few more questions. So I invite you to just maybe write down the questions, and maybe you could choose. We've got 3 more hands up, so maybe Anna, you could take 2, and Runa, you could take a couple of questions. And I will invite you to see if you could keep the responses short so we can get in more. But I'll go to Richard now. Richard, yes, please, your question.
Yeah, hi, Vishal. Good to see you.
Hi, good to see you.
I just want to bring attention to some links that I put in chat here of festival events that are coming up that I think pertain very much to what is being said here. They're related to human rights and what people are doing inside and outside public systems to try to bring them about. And I think they form the foundation of local learning ecosystems, which I'm really interested in how that concept is developing. Derry Hannum is somebody that I've followed for ages who was just speaking, and he's going to be speaking at the 3rd of the events that I've included there. His experience inside education, and how teachers. He has a book called How Things Can Be Different. I don't have the title quite right, but becoming a democratic teacher in a state school is his subject, which is we really just say the nod from you, Runa, that you understand that. And so Derry speaks to that along with Charlie Moreno Romero, who started a democratic school inside a public school, so a school within a school, in Estonia. So there's lots going on, and that set of three events there they speak really well to the issues that have been raised here as well, if you're able to attend them. So thanks for this. I agree with Derry. It's been a really good discussion here today.
Thank you, Richard. Thank you also for letting us know about these upcoming events. The Learning Planet Festival, of course, is such a rich platform for deep education conversation. So thank you for sharing these events on the chat. I'll invite others who are here to also sign in. I'll go to Emerin. Emerin, do you have a question or reflection?
Yeah, thank you so much, Vishal. And it was great listening to Runa as well as Anna. So I'm Emerin from the Climate Sociologist. And whatever you have said is quite inspiring as educators seeing these impactful stories. And I would like to agree with what Anna said earlier, saying that how can you teach someone you don't know? And this is very crucial as educators. You'd really have to get to understand the demographic characteristics and even personal individual characteristics of your target audience of these learners. And so we are the climate sociologists. We are based in West Africa, in Ghana, and we're trying to demystify climate education. And I would like to say, even for us as educators, we do not use a single approach when it comes to learners. So we consider the target audience for the age group of people living in the capital city, for example, for like from 8 to 13 years. And we want to teach them about climate science, sustainable practices, and all of that. We don't use just one approach because you have to get to know who your learners are. And so, for example, we had case studies where in a middle class school, we try to make them connect to their roots for them to know what the cultural norms say about sustainability and preserving the environment. And so we use the approach of adopting these whole terminologies like being classy or bougie to use a water bottle instead of depending on a single-use plastic. And so also that is for one class, that's the middle class, because they like to have things known as bougie or fashion or classy. And so when we go to another case study of the same age group in the same city, we do not use that same approach because these are people from a lower class and they are thinking about their next meal. They're not thinking about the fancy bottles or why they think that they are more classy. So again, with retracing what Anna said, that you have to know who you are teaching in order for you to impact them. We also use, for a lower class, we adopted the cultural music because folklore, traditional knowledge is what is extremely important. So I would like to contribute that in as much as we are revising our educational curriculum, especially for the Global South, we would have to get to know who our target audience are and also try to revise and incorporate culture and societal or local relevant knowledge in disseminating. And as Runa said,
Emerin. Yeah.
Everyone is aware of education, so we have to know how to make it impactful. Thank you.
Lovely. Thank you, Emerin. I think we do need more learning ecosystems across the board. Aikia, if you have a reflection, then I'll probably first respond to Derry's question. But if you have a question, I'll add that. So
it's a part reflection, part question. If I'm happy to do either, wait or go ahead now.
Okay, I do want to get to Derry's question, so if you don't mind waiting. And Derry's also very graciously said that he could share his book PDF version for free if we email him at the email address. So thank you, Derry. But Anna, Runa, do you want to take up Derry's question? How do we reduce more stuff from schools and create more space for children's interests?
Go ahead, Runa.
Okay. First of all, I'm very impressed. You must be a great principal, Derry, to be able to allow this to happen and to be able to, absorb and take in, because it's not easy in a context when you have a large school. Our schools are much smaller. We have 30 children in a class, so it's much easier. And you are absolutely right, you know. It's heartbreaking for us because as an organization, we cannot cater to, because of our limitation of people who can bring to our children what they want. You know, let me tell you one thing. We can only do what they really need for their life to move ahead because of the limitations of this one island where there is no electricity, where there is not even a shop, you know. So, for example, we needed them to, they knew they needed to have English. Now, Bangladesh has a real serious
Runa,
issue
sorry,
with
I'm
English.
going to
Sorry.
ask you to
Oh,
try to
make it
concise
short.
it.
Okay, I
Yes,
shall.
thank you.
So this is
I
an
know there's a
interesting.
lot
So
you
what
want to
we did,
share. Yeah.
no, I'll make it short. So what we did was we got, children wanted to learn proper English. So we got teachers from Europe, had the whole English curriculum, you know, verbally recorded, and the record player would play, and the children would learn from these recorded classes of, you know, from teachers, because the teachers in the field cannot speak English properly. So, you know, then they wanted football. So we could, you know, we got an icon or a leader in football who would be able to help them. You know, we work with PSG. So, you know, things like that. So it was, you're totally correct. But what we do is from the community, we take them up to teach them gardening, field work, soil tests, etc., what they need in their environment. But it's very true that I wish we had more people who could teach, you know, what our children really need. I wish we were in that circumstance.
Thank you.
Situation.
Thank you, Runa. Yeah. Anna, do you have perspective to Terry's question?
Yeah, you know, over the last decades, I've been trying to
And
be
concise, please. Sorry.
yeah, I promise. I've been trying to be a hacker in education. So how to change things in a very disruptive way. But at a certain point, I think we have to change policies because, of course, we have wonderful principals. They are doing innovations in their schools, but we have to make it something systemic. So some years ago, we started a movement in Brazil to create our national curriculum standards. And the people that were leading the movement were very focused on what happened in the US with the Common Core. And so they were very focused in like language and math. And I was telling them, we're in the 21st century. We cannot think about curriculum only thinking about math and Portuguese or English or whatever language we speak. We really have to change things in a more in-depth way. So I led this movement to try and change, reframe the curriculum so that it could really address the holistic development of the students. So we managed, after 4 years of a lot of advocacy work, to really include in the curriculum 10 general competencies, which are in the end, the final purpose of the national curriculum standards. So we try to really address all those interests that we know that young people have nowadays. And also, like Julie was writing here on the chat, starting with self-knowledge, self-confidence, self-esteem. So like critical thinking, creativity, digital culture, all those things, citizenship, tolerance. So this is very important. So this is, though all those things are in our national curriculum standards. So it means that it's mandatory for every school to teach those competencies. But what happened is that from the intention, that is good, to practice, to results, there's a long way. So that's why we have to train people who are going to implement those novelties in the curriculum. We have to train the teachers. We have to train those who design the curriculums, those who produce the materials, the tools, the pedagogical tools. So it's a long way, but I think we really have to think systemic, right? So that experiences like the one that Professor Hannan is implementing could be in every school around the globe, and especially in the Global South.
Thank you, Anna and Runa. Ikea, so I know we have very little time, so if you could skip the question, but I would love to hear your reflection.
Okay,
I know you have access to Anna and Runa, so you can reach out to them personally with your
Oh
question.
yeah, of course.
But would
No,
love to hear your reflection.
okay, I'll just keep it to the reflection. I really love Runa and Anna's point on listening without prejudice and really not going in without preconceived notions. Because for me, I think you keep seeing this again and again in India where women across, all socioeconomic classes drop out of the labor force, workforce after marriage, especially after having kids. And for me, it was like a big thing to just take a step back, not look at it through a judgmental lens of it being unfeminist in some way, regressive or patriarchal, and just think that it just makes sense for them given the drudgery of household labor, domestic labor that they unfortunately really have to put up with. And it's just so hard for us to kind of not impose our ideals on the people that we're serving, and just to realize that our role is to empower them to take their decisions, even if they don't really align with our value systems in some way. So I think my question part was just like, I would have loved to hear what in your journeys, what are the sort of biases that you kind of had to unlearn and not, just listen in a way without looking down or without patronizing the people that you're serving. But we don't have to get into it, but that was just something which I had in my mind.
Thank you, Ikea. Such a powerful question, and I know this is so layered, so it will take us quite a few minutes to get a response on such an important question. But we'll hold that for next time. I want to bring this to a close. So for the people who have been with us, and thank you for staying with us for almost 90 minutes in this amazing, deeply insightful session. Maybe in the chat, if you could put one word, a reflection of what has stayed with you from what you've heard. It could be a word, it could be a single question, something that you want to probably stay with as you move away from this session. A word that has kind of stayed in your gut. I would love to see some responses in the chat. Thank you, Terry. Terry says local, Richard says compassion for the individual, Eugene says possibilities, Angeline collaboration, Olga authentic listening, Julie may sound crazy but heart, yeah, absolutely, a lot of heart. Yeah. Deep listening, time for systems change policies. Oh, beautiful, thank you, keep sharing this. It's been an absolutely fantastic session. Anna, Runa, thank you for bringing your entire selves. And thank you for bringing so much humanity in your personal sharing and being so candid and authentic. In a lot of the listening, I also heard some of the frustrations and challenges that you continue to experience and face as you try to transform education. But what I'm taking away is this amazing hope that across the world, there are movements that are building in transforming education. There are movements that are focused on moving education away from academic excellence to the idea of thriving and human flourishing. And this gives a huge level of encouragement to all of us that these movements are beginning to come together thanks to the efforts of the Learning Planet Institute and many others. They get learning to get amplified, and we're hearing about them and they're learning about them, and hopefully these collective movements will transform education experiences for all children across the world. Thank you, Anna. Thank you, Runa. I'm going to hand it back to Catherine, who can help us just bring it to a close.
Wonderful. And
yeah, go ahead.
And I would just like to thank Vishal for doing such a great job at moderating this really rich and what's felt like quite an intimate discussion. I kind of wish this could be a regular podcast series or something, because I had so many personal questions that I wanted to ask about, growing and as women in the field and being women in leadership positions in your respective countries. And yeah, there's just a lot to unpack. But we'll save that for another time. I'm really looking forward to working with you more deeply over this project, and everyone else that's in the call. Thank you so much for your interest in this project. I'll keep you updated with our next milestones. Thank you for your enthusiasm and for sharing about all of your events. And I'll just hand it over to Runa and Anna in a second if they have any final words. But just a reminder to all participants, you can submit your feedback form to us, and that will help us to make this event and other events better in the future. But thanks again to everyone and to all the team that's online as well. Really appreciate you being here. Over to you.
Thank you. I just want to thank Learning Planet also for providing this platform, and getting us all linked together, because I think there are so many people doing such amazing work all over the world. And unless there are platforms like this where there is sharing, understanding, having the right people together, it's very difficult to carry thoughts and ideas, and spread that. So all of you are in my heart, and Anna, certainly. And thank you, Vishal. Thank you.
Thank you, Runa. Thank you, Vishal. Thank you, Catherine, and everyone from the Learning Planet for this opportunity. We shared some information about our work. So if you ever want to know more, do reach out to us. And just a quick information that we are also working in different countries in the Global South, in India, South Africa, Kenya, Pakistan, and some other countries in Latin America. So we might bump up into one another very soon.
Fantastic, lovely. Thank you, Catherine and IKEA, for supporting this session. Thank you, everyone. Have a great day, evening, wherever you are.
Wonderful. Thanks, everyone.